Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is SIC Talks number 83. It's a special edition, a very timely one, you might say. One, because we're going to do a new abbreviated format here, and our first guest on the clock is ticking version of SIC Talks is Brynn Wallner. Brynn is actually a two-time guest on the show. She was here in the 40s, I think, but when I first became fascinated / infatuated / I don't know what, like in love with Dimepiece, her femme-forward watch media company, and she started kind of on a whim almost, it felt like, Brynn. My apologies for all of the dogs. Indeed. But anyway, you're out on the street today being a roving reporter. What's going on?
Yeah, well, when even is New York Fashion Week? I don't know, because I feel like it's been going on for like a
Well, I was
month.
going to say, you got US Open into Fashion Week into
Yeah,
Armory Week all at the same time.
yeah. So it's a very busy season, and even though my focus is on watches, I have found that I get looped into a bunch of different things across the cultural spectrum. So this year I've been more fashion than ever. I went to the US Open twice. Yeah.
one and one under your own steam as Dimepiece, and then another time as like a, let's call it an influencer. Was that fair to say, or
Yeah,
did I get that
yeah.
wrong?
When I went with Rolex, it was because I'm a watch journalist and they host media. And when I went with J. Crew, it was because I've worked with them before, and I'm honored to say I'm part of the J. Crew family. And so yeah, I guess they just had a few people. It was really fun. We were courtside, which was awesome.
I've heard our mutual friend Chris talk about that experience, and I can't say that I've done that myself, but it must have been really exciting to be right there.
Yeah, well, I had my tickets and I was asking the usher where the seats were, and I was like looking up, and they were like, "No, it's down." And I was like, "What?"
So,
And it was right on the court.
did you
Oh,
go and pay a visit to the diehards up in the nosebleeds that the New York Times wrote about last
I
week? Just
did say hi to the people in the Polo Ralph Lauren box, which might as well have been the nosebleeds compared to the J. Crew seats.
see, there you go. I've been as a guest of, I think, Bank of America a
Nice.
few years back, or maybe it was actually Amex. But you're right. It's like it's not a tennis experience. It's a social experience, courtesy of a brand.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how I have this image of tennis being this very austere, quiet sport, and it's just like
Is that because of the way you
influencers.
play?
I don't know how to play.
Neither do
I'm
I.
not really tapped into tennis. I just have this image of it being very, very quiet, and it's not. And it's a
No.
bunch of influencers like eating chicken fingers and honey deuces, whatever those weird caviar chicken nuggets are that people pay hundreds of dollars for.
Did you see that I read a headline that said that influencers had been banned from the US Open next year.
Yeah.
Whatever that
Are
means.
you punking me now?
I'm really not. No, I
Well, because
promise.
I made that headline up for my Substack debut, and then it clicks to a link that says "just kidding."
Oh, well, I'm really glad I caveated by saying I hadn't read the article because it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, I the whole time I was there, I was like, influencers should be banned. This is so disruptive, and nobody's even watching. They're just taking pictures, and I myself included, of course. But I was like,
Right.
this is crazy. How is this allowed? This isn't like the NBA. Like it's tennis. NBA is so entertainment, but I guess tennis is too. So
Yeah.
whatever.
I
Anyway,
mean,
that's fake news. I'm spreading misinformation on my Substack.
I love that. Well, okay. Well, so that brings us to a very pertinent point, which is as you know, the ostensible point of the show is to go through like stories in the media that I have sort of picked out and feature in SIC. One of which prominently in the Friends well, actually, it'll be in the SIC Talk section, but it would have been in the Friends section had you not helped me today by coming on short notice. But it is about Dimepiece's newsletter, which was announced in Town and Country last year, apparently, before it ever existed.
Yes.
I thought that was really fantastic. But it popped up. It popped up in my inbox yesterday, and I was just like, "Oh, here's Brynn's newsletter that, of course, I'm familiar with." Assuming I'd seen it before, and then I started reading. I was like, "Oh, I guess I never have." I just, you give media ecosystem vibes to me, Brynn, which is the thing
I'm
that has
giving Substack.
no, I don't mean you're giving Substack, but you like from the beginning, and this is why I was interested to talk to you when we first spoke. And I think you were, as a matter of fact, I think you were the first person I ever reached out to cold, who was not a friend already, or not somebody that an acquaintance already. But I just thought what you were doing was really interesting, and I could see all of the ways in which it became your version of a little media empire that had all of these different sort of tentacles and expressions. And you've proven that, right? Like you and Malika have recorded a bunch of podcast episodes. You've now published this Substack. You've got this Instagram presence. You're now doing influencing, and you're now writing for the FT and for all of these other people. Like you're manifesting what I thought you were going to. So I don't know what. Either I'm really smart or you're really talented.
You have an eye for talent, Ben.
Can't claim it.
You should be like an influencer manager. Yeah, no, it's been exciting, and it's kind of always. You're right. I am in the media ecosystem. I have a group chat on my phone called Men in Media.
Oh, really?
I play in the media softball league in the summertime. I'm really in the media, and I love legacy media. I still get print.
Okay.
And I still believe in it, which is why I had to troll Town and Country, because I was like, you guys got to do some fact checking.
Right.
I don't even have a newsletter, but you're saying you thought I had one, so maybe people just assumed. I've also been featured on a lot of Substack, so I feel like it was a natural, it's just a natural extra tentacle growth, as you say.
Well, I mean, I think that's it, Brynn. Like you've found a medium and a conversation that was really prone and primed for that kind of expansion. And so anything you do logically that falls from that, people will just be like, oh yeah, great. It's easy. Which is why when you texted me yesterday, like a little bit of, feeling of consternation or whatever, having published the thing and having, maybe being concerned that it wasn't perfect. I was just like, no, it's great. It's exactly what it should have been.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I have so many different mediums with Dimepiece. It's the Instagram account. It's my own website. It's the different publishers that I write for. It's whatever. And I'm not native to Substack. I don't really go on it. So it felt like I was getting like my training wheels, and I was just like, is this right? And certain media like Instagram is not controlled, and you just kind of let it rip. At least I do. And then other articles I'll pour over for like months before they see the light of day. So this felt kind of like an in-between. But I just went with God, and it's out in the open now. So
well, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think the tone and the approach is great. B, I think the thing that the thing that I contend with with the bulk of your work is that while I'm interested in watches, as you know, I'm not in it like the way that real serious, what are they called? Orophiles? Are they called orophiles?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, I'm not in it like that, and I also, can't pay attention like you do to all of the comings and goings. And to what I liked about the newsletter, and what I like about just the idea of it generally, is that it distills the stories that you thought were most important, and doesn't deal with. It's not trying to be everything. And I just thought it felt really natural that way. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you expand it. And I hope you, send lots of them and ask me for advice.
Awesome. Well, you always give really good advice, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, okay. So let me ask you then, what, as you thought about what was going to go into that first issue, was there anybody else that you were looking at, or any other sort of sources historically, or, in your peer set or whatever, that you look at and you go, I want to I like this idea for Dimepiece, and I think I can set this out? Or,
Yeah.
was there a role
Yeah,
model?
well, I really admire what Lauren Sherman's doing over at Puck with Line Sheet.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that it's just like giving the industry tea
Mm-hmm.
in a nice, polished package that's professional and smart and witty and self-aware. And I don't think I'm as smart as Lauren or as experienced, but I realize that nobody's really covering watches from that kind of insider angle.
Yeah.
And, it's difficult because I get wined and dined with all these brands. I was enjoying the hospitality of Rolex at the US Open. Like, there's this kind of like push and pull when it comes to like I'm getting spoiled, but
Right.
and I'm not a journalist, like I'm not a staff writer at the Wall Street Journal. So it's like, I don't have those guardrails where it's like, oh, I can't accept your gift. I can't accept this business class flight. I can't go to dinner. It's like, I say yes because I'm a freelancer and I get paid nothing for my writing. And so, yes, I'll take all the perks. But then where's the line being drawn between me like kissing their ass and then me being kind of honest about it?
Yeah.
And offering, if I'm seeing what's happening, for example, with Chopard and they hired Bella Hadid to be their global brand ambassador, and I know that Bella a month ago was wearing a Cartier Panther organically,
Right.
like I know that they are paying her not to wear Cartier now, essentially.
Yeah.
And I am not trying to put two brands against each other, but it's very like clear in my eyes that they're like, well, maybe we could use some of Bella's influence to help, Chopard out because she did so much for Cartier.
Right.
People
Well,
see
not
her
as much
wearing
as
that.
you did, I would say, but I'm gonna.
Well, she was the first person I saw. I was like, oh, Bella wears the Cartier Panther. This is like the it girl watch. And then I wrote a whole article about it, and then like people started calling it that on social media,
Right.
and I just took what was going on. Gave it a name, and now everybody's like, over the it girl watch now because that's been done. Even
Right.
though I love that watch. Anyway, yeah. So, but what I was saying is like maybe that's like a little juicy, and maybe I wouldn't put that in like an FT article or
Right.
um,
Well,
and
it's the FT would demand, it's speculative, and so the FT would
yeah,
demand that you properly source it and you do all
right.
of this other stuff, and that's fine. And fair fucks, they should, but
Yes.
that doesn't change the significance of your conjecture or the likelihood of it being true. So it's like,
Yeah.
why not have a place for that too?
Yeah, and I see that too. Like I read Emily Sundberg's Feed Me, which is a big Substack hit.
Sure.
People always talk about that one. And I see like that what happens when a smart person aggregates news. So it's
Yeah.
like maybe I don't have time to write about this whole Chopard deal, which is very nuanced, but I'll link to it and then give my hot take. And I was like, I guess that's fair game on Substack.
Yeah.
Might as
Yeah.
well do
Yeah.
it myself with the watch lens,
For sure. Well, it seems to me like you've always struck me as somebody who moves like very fluidly through a bunch of different rooms that other people find intimidating, right? Like fashion is intimidating, art is intimidating, autorology and all of this stuff is intimidating. Working in media is intimidating, right? And it's like, and you just kind of float through all of it gravity free. And I think people look at that and they just go like, how does that work, right? And I don't know, can't imagine you calculate any of that stuff, but you have a natural gift for it, so you do it, and people like that.
Why I think it is because I went to high school in New York City. I would commute from Hoboken every day. And the high school I went to was like very like bohemian intellectual, like the cool kids were doing crosswords, the New York Times
Really?
crossword.
Okay.
Like there were no jocks. It was like a very kind of like coddled. It was a Quaker school.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
It was just like a really sweet, cool experience. and it was all these cool New York City kids. And then I went to Colgate University, which was the best school I got into, so that's why I chose it. Jocks, like Republicans, fucking like
Well, I mean,
rich kids who don't give a fuck. Like, I was like, oh my God, such a culture shock. Greek life was so big there. And I feel like I just got jolted into this environment that I just had no experience with, and I had to be really socially adaptable. And I honestly feel like joining a sorority and like just joining in and learning how to talk to people who like I didn't really identify with or grow up with really forced me. And it's those same people that are now like holding like big jobs in the finance world and
yeah.
like whatever. Like I can speak the language of these richy rich people.
Well, I mean, there's that, but I think there's also you have there's a level of nonchalance and sort of just quiet confidence that you don't. I mean, you can learn it, but you kind of can't. It's you're born with it. So I
Well,
think
yeah.
there's that too.
Oh,
Although I will
thanks.
say everything you just said is really encouraging, given that I've got a freshman at college right now
Oh, yeah.
who hopefully is learning all of those lessons as we go.
Well, yeah, no, it takes time. Also, my dad was also really like, he was always like, you ask if I'm like a 6 year old and I'm at the library and I want a book, and he's like, you ask the librarian, I'm not asking
Yeah,
for you.
right. Yeah.
And I feel like I've always been pushed to be like, you can do it, you could do it. So I shout out to my dad for yeah, yeah, it's like it's a lifetime in the making, me being able to now go to Switzerland and not be afraid to talk to a CEO.
This is yeah. The on the vision board we had trip to Switzerland, talk to the CEO. Who in that? I mean, do you find you know, on the flip side of that coin, do you find people in that world who can talk at your level of, let's call it, you know, downtown relevance or whatever? And I mean, you know, it's like, do they know about any of the shit that you're interested in at home, or are they just in the mountaintops of haute horologie?
I think certain brands, I think the internet has made it really kind of accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Like what was once confined to like IRL experiences is now just being spewed on social media. And I think that there are certain people at certain brands, like Audemars Piguet, for example, super tapped in. And 25 years ago they were working with Jay-Z.
Yeah,
Last year they worked with Travis Scott. So it's like, got to give them credit for like tapping in. And I think that they have people there that are like, scrolling TikTok and on Instagram, and maybe they are themselves like at some of these things and interested themselves. I think it really just depends. But the internet has definitely made all this information more accessible. But like, are these people actually going to the parties?
yeah.
Well, a lot of them live in Switzerland, so no. And
So no,
then yeah, but then they have PR agencies who multitask different clients that are in the fashion world. So, they're not completely like unaware, but I
yeah.
think that I've I've come of age in my career as somebody who's very out and about. Hence why I'm literally like on the street right now. So yeah.
You know, it's funny. Our mutual friend Goots was on Casey Lewis's podcast today, and Casey described her as aggressively out, and
Oh
she
yeah.
said, she was like, "Oh yeah, Ben Dietz called me that. That was Ben Dietz's coining for me. So I've now, you know,
That's simply out.
Goots the aggressively out,
Well,
but
she's the right age. You should have seen me at her age. Woo!
yeah. Well, you should have seen me at your age too, and hers also.
Oh,
Jesus.
I know, the
Well,
circle of life.
it really is. It really is. Well, so Brynn, I guess the question that I have about the newsletter in particular is like, do you imagine it becoming then a thing like Emily does with Feed Me, where it has the chat and the community and live events and all of that sort of stuff? Do you imagine it being like what I do, where it has the video pod and then you continue to sit in your living room? Do you imagine it being, I don't know, something else, or have you just not kind of thought about it that much and it's embryonic and it'll be what it becomes?
Well, I think because Dimepiece already is a community, and I've had live events, and I host events, and
Yes, fair enough.
I have people in my DMs all the time, and I have conversations with them about watches, which I really enjoy. Like, it's one of my favorite things. Is just like watches are like this crazy. They're these crazy objects that, like, for whatever reason,
Yeah,
you
which
just
one is
kind of.
that? Which one is that, by
Yes.
the way?
So this is a Grand Seiko.
Ah,
Um,
cool.
I've been wearing it more lately. It has like a baby blue dial. It's called the Soko Frost, but I call it the Gatorade Frost, which is also my favorite Gatorade flavor. Um, yeah, so it's like I see watches and it's just like immediately people have a story to tell. They have something
Yeah,
about their family. So by default, it's like an object that's already injected with all this meaning for people. It's a connector. And then
yeah,
Dime Piece has just been this amazing community. People stop me on the street, they tell me about their watches. I don't get as many street stops as Mike Nouveau, though. You can't walk, 5 minutes without that guy getting like fans. Oh man, he is like I'm trying to think of a celebrity to compare him to without kissing his ass too much.
yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know Mike, so I'm in your. I know of him, of course, but I don't know him. So
Yeah.
I can't supply any
Yeah. Let's just leave it at
smart
that. But
suggestions.
anyway, I think the Substack is really my place to kind of like share my musings in kind of a casual format,
Yeah.
and it's just a way to grow Dime Piece even more holistically. So yeah, I want to do more. I think Dime Piece has so much potential. Like, I'm doing the bare minimum right now in my eyes, even
Well,
though
so speaking of, I mean, well, I would challenge that assertion, but I also wonder: is it still just you? I mean, is everything
yeah,
still
yeah,
you?
yeah. I recently hired somebody to help with social media.
Okay.
But it's still me doing all the execution on everything and writing and all the interviews, although I have gotten contributors, which has been really awesome, like editing people's work and publishing it myself, because I just don't have time to do everything.
Yeah,
And
of
I
course.
feel I'm so, so busy, but um, it's just, I don't know. I have faith that I'll be able to continue and just grow it and not have to get funding. Like I've
Yeah.
turned down VC conversations because I'm just like, that's why I do all the brand stuff and like the influencering, which is so easy to roast and be like, oh, you're like selling out. And I'm like, it's to fund my
Who
passion.
says that? Like who in this
I
day and age says that?
I
That
know.
is it's such an antique critique. It's
I
so
know.
stupid.
I'm like, isn't it so obvious? But I
Yeah.
I do feel like a tension where it's like I'm doing all this brand stuff. Now, how does that impact me as a journalist? And I'm like, honestly, journalism pays nothing. So I just
Yep.
can't unless I'm a staff writer somewhere. Like I have to hustle and I have to take those checks, those influencer checks, and then that makes me equipped to like do a really thoughtful essay for whoever.
Right.
So yeah.
I just think in my view, and this is I used to fight with people advice about this years and years ago, but the it was just like as long as you disclose your incentive here, like
Mhm.
that's fine. Like this Rolex is a long-term partner, or I have done branded stuff with J. Crew, or I flew to Switzerland to see the Audemars people or whatever. Like you say it, and people can the audience is smart enough to judge what the implications of that are. Like,
Yeah.
so put it out
Yeah.
there and then let them draw their own conclusions. Is my
Yeah.
feeling.
And haters are gonna hate. And I have the walls built up where I can take some. But also, by the way, I do not get paid by like Rolex to go to the US Open, or I don't get paid
Yeah,
when I go on an AP trip, which a lot of people, I know you probably know that, but a lot of people are like, do you get paid every time you go on these press trips? And the answer is no. And it's
no,
just like an essential part of the watch industry ecosystem, as it is with fashion, to like fly out
yeah,
the journalist, fly out the editor. Here's our new stuff. You can write about it if you want. Like it's never quid pro quo with me, which is nice.
yeah.
Um, so at least I have that going for me.
I think, yeah, I don't know, Brent. I feel like the way you storytell around that stuff. It's clear to me anyway. I mean, I know what a junket is. I know how these things
Yeah.
work. And having been, if I was a freelance writer for years, and I now do my Substack for, that's an advertisement for myself and get paid
Yeah.
for it. So, but in any case, I think you do a good job with it. And so I wouldn't stress too much. And I've never heard of anybody say they like aren't a fan of yours. So where this whole hater thing is coming from, I just don't know. I'm not sure
It's
that's
just
real.
like, you know, it's my own, it's the devil on my shoulder.
All
I'm
right.
like, oh, great, you're posting another pic.
Well, listen, you did me a huge solid by jumping in at the last minute to help me salvage a cancellation. So I really appreciate it. But you have to go and get your nails did for a shoot. Can we? Can we talk about the shoot? Is there anything? Can I break the news here?
Oh
with
yeah.
SIC Talks?
Well, are you familiar with Pinup Magazine? It's like a high-end architecture magazine.
Yeah, of course.
And I've been involved with their watch editorials for the past like 3 print issues. So every time they do a print issue, I help with the watch part of it. So
Okay.
they're just using me as a hand model.
Wow,
So
really?
yeah, it's not
No
about me.
wonder. No
Yeah.
wonder getting your nails done was so important. I thought this was just general, like, holistic
No.
beauty, self-care type thing.
No, fun fact about me is I haven't gotten a manicure in like 2 years. Which I probably should because I'd be posting a lot of wrist shots. But yeah, I've curated the watches and it's gonna be this cool shoot. But yeah, they're looking a little mangy. So
All right. Well, listen, go get them did, Brynn. It's great to talk to you as always. I love seeing your face, and I'm glad we got to make this happen. Thank you again.
thank you.
Everybody, this has been SIC Talks number 83 with Brynn Wallner. Dimepiece.co is the site. Dimepiece is the Substack. Dimepiece is the Instagram. And Brynn's byline is all over the place, including the new issue of Pinup Magazine, apparently. So, or her hand modeling is a new element to her career. So anyway, Brynn, thanks very much for being here. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Bye.
Bye.